Yo, what's going on, guys? And today I didn't turn on this light, so I guess that makes me more legit with better lighting. So what we have in front of us is at my work, hoopshype.com. We have the depth charts to my right, or well, your right, my right as well. I guess this isn't flip.
So yeah, that got fucked when basically OBS just didn't want to scroll with my screen. So I'm just putting screenshots in.
I digress. So let's get into today's video and talk about potential trade candidates for all 30 teams. This will not be a 40-minute video. If it is a 40-minute video, I will be mad. Before we start today's video, I would like to hear your guys' thoughts. Who's somebody you think is trade eligible and why? And comment them. Like, subscribe. It'll help out the channel a ton. And let's get right into it. Atlanta. Who's the trade candidate on Atlanta? It would have been Kobe Buffkin. That already happened. So let's find a new one. It could be Onyeka Okongwu. I love Onyeka. It could also be Luke Kennard, who I think Luke Kennard we also had on the X Factor. I think Luke Kennard could be someone that like a team that is desperate for three-point shooting and feels like they're a contender. And if maybe the Hawks feel like he's a luxury or they have a bad year, they end up selling high on him. Onyeka, maybe Asa Newell just like ends up being way better and able to play the switch big position, and N'Faly Dante, who I expect to be one of the bargain signings of the summer presses, or maybe Mo Gay or Charles Bassey, something along those lines, which then makes Onyeka, and then they hope to sign Kristaps and he shows to be healthy. I feel like that's sort of the realistic realm. We have on the left side the salary caps, just to give you an idea of any salaries when we want to use it for reference. We're going to go over to Boston. And I think Boston's, to be honest, besides Anthony Simons, which is the obvious answer, and I really just think a team that becomes desperate for a point guard is going to be one or three-point shooting or a six-man and has either a trade exception or a salary that match it, which, by the way, we'll go to capsheets.com. Yossi Gonzalez. Shout out. Actually, no, you got to respond to my text message, buddy. I did. He had me working on an idea. Either way, what's a team that could have a trade exception for somebody like an Anthony Simons and might need guard help? I think at this point, Orlando, because he's from the Central Florida area, was long tied to him. And if their guards get hurt or something collapses, maybe they package salary and do something like that. The Lakers could be a team there too with their Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber, as well as Jared Vanderbilt. They have a few contracts that they could stagger. So I think that's something to consider right there. But I've said this in multiple videos. If Baylor Shireman, I don't know if Hugo Gonzalez is going to be able to shine this year, but a Josh Minot, potentially a Jalen Bridges, maybe a Jordan Walsh. If Sam Hauser, if he just continues to produce the same, but like all those guys really press him for minutes, is it worth paying him $10 million for similar production from other guys who maybe are better defensively? I think that's like my one right there. Going over to Brooklyn, this whole team is trade like candidate worthy. I think Nick Claxton is someone that I thought for the longest time was going to get traded. I don't know where he's going to end up. Cam Thomas is the obvious one. But yeah, this Danny Wolf, Terrence Mann, Tyrese Martin, Jalen Wilson might be throw-ins at some point in a trade, both because they could actually be like end of the bench, 10th, 11th guys on teams. Zaire Williams, Danny Wolf. Not Danny Wolf. Zaire Williams, Deron Sharp, as Danny Wolf is going to be someone that they want to probably give some more minutes to. Same thing with them having Drake Powell and Ben Seraph and all those guards, Yagor. But yeah, all the vets on that team. Charlotte. If they could get rid of Miles Bridges, I think that would be like an ideal situation. I just don't know if that's going to happen. It just feels like that's a bit of a pipe dream. But because who's going to want to take that $25 million? Outside of that, again, same thing with Pat Connaughton. If they can find someone to take that money, maybe they flip Mason Plumlee again. dark horse, LaMelo or Josh Green. But yeah, I think those are obvious. Is just trying to find the suitor. Chicago, they would want to move Vooch. I think they like Kevin Huerter, but maybe he's someone that, because of his expiring contract. I think Jalen Smith, they seem high on Collins and they like his expiring contract. So I think Sims and maybe a Dalen Terry, just because he hasn't gotten run. And what's the fit? Somebody might want his restricted free agency rights. We go over to the Cavaliers. We know Dean Wade. I think that's an obvious one. I would put Darius Garland up there just because of the escalating payment as a result of the deep void that Evan Mobley won. I think that would make him way more, would make Darius Garland more expendable, especially if Craig Porter seizes the moment with him potentially being out to start the season. And so does Lonzo Ball show that he's healthy. And maybe even a Kelly Hayes or a Tyrese Proctor shines as a reserve guard. Then why pay someone for 39 when you can split that by committee and only have to play $15 million between three dudes? And you still have Strus coming back. Yeah, I think that one, those would be mine. The rest, I feel like the team is pretty locked in. I just think they wouldn't trade Jared Allen because for how affordable and cost controlled his contracts are, you're not going to be able to find somebody of equal production, durability, and just consistency that he gives you. So I think Jared's staying around for the long haul. Klay Thompson could be the dark horse right here. Just $16 million for a guy who, I said it when he was on the Warriors, that a guy like Buddy Hield, a Sam Merrill, AJ Green, plenty of others, Malik Beasley could provide you with similar, if not better, production. Caleb Martin's another one that I think. Jaden Hardy could be someone, especially if Dennis Smith and Brandon Williams outplay him in camp. Dwight Powell, I just don't know how he sticks around. Must be a good locker room guy. But those are the obvious ones. It used to be PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, but they both seemingly are going to be kept around for the long haul. Now we go over to the Denver Nuggets. Payne Watson could be someone just because of his contract situation and them probably not wanting to pay him. Obviously, Zeke is someone they've wanted to move for a while. But Hunter Tyson and Payne Watson and Zeke are the three I think that are obvious right there. I think everybody else looks like they are going to play a crucial role and they wouldn't want to move them. So I think that's just where you're at with that roster. Then you have Detroit. Detroit's a little, I think the dark horse is beef stew because of the $15 million. They're going to have to pay Jalen Duren. Maybe a team that needs a solid backup big. He's a switch big. He could be someone that teams are interested in. Marcus Sasser, if they wanted to do a bigger trade. And Jaden Ivey, I think, is the obvious one. Is he going to be someone that's going to get that extension? How much is he worth paying? And will it kind of started to work? It did look like it was working. And he was hitting the three-point shot, working in the sense that he fit with Kate Cunningham and the three-point shot was falling. So it's just that's the obvious question. We got to see if Trajan Langdon's going to pull the trigger on that and if JB Bickerstaff wants them to be there. Now, Jonathan Kuminga is the obvious one here with the Golden State Warriors. We don't spend much time. We know the Kings, the Bulls, and I believe the other rumored and the Suns are all interested in him. And then outside of that, man, I think you could put in a world either Trace Jackson Davis or B-Pod, especially if both of them become non-contributors or B-Pod just isn't taking the steps that they hope. Houston, I think they're saying they're going to extend, Tari Eason. I think a lot of people want to say Reed Shepard's going to be expendable with the Fred VanVleet if they're going to make a trade for a bigger person. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think Jabari Smith, he was given an extension that was meant to be traded. And they retained a lot of players. And with Tari, I think they feel like he could be similar cost, if not cheaper. Or maybe one of the bigs in Clint Capella or Steven Adams if one of them looks really old or if they get a good call from a team that's desperate for a big man. Maybe they could sell one of them high because they have depth. Indiana, I would go, man, I think they really want to give Jarris Walker some runs. So I wouldn't put him, but Obi Toppin could be, just because that 14 million. I think they value Aaron Neesmith, and he's just the guy that might be the odd one out. And maybe one of Jay Huff, James Wiseman, Isaiah Jackson, Tony Bradley gets traded, or they go 4 deep on committee. That could be possible. Clippers, this one's interesting. If you pull Bogdan out of it, I think the obvious guy is Bogdanovich, but it could also be Kobe Brown, because how is he going to get minutes? They could even be packaged together as using him as a sweetener. Now, we kind of talked about the Lakers earlier, as I think these are obvious. Some people are going to say Jared Vanderbilt. Gabe Vincent had some minutes, but I think Maxi Kleba would be someone that, even if he's healthy, he's just going to be buried in that depth chart, and everyone's going to say Dalton Connect because his value's low, but he could be someone I really would put my chips more in about Maxi Kleba. And I think they value Gabe Vincent because they don't have another point guard to go, and like, since he's been healthy, I think he's been pretty solid. Now, if we go to the Grizzlies, John Conchar is going to be the immediate first one. They're unhealthy, so I don't think they're making an insane move. The other guy, it could really be Brandon Clark. Like, Brandon Clark, once they're fully healthy, he might not be the same guy. And he looked decent for coming back from the Achilles tear in the past year. But they might move on and not think it's worth paying him $12 million as he's gotten further hurt. Miami, a lot of people are going to say Andrew Wiggins. I just don't think they're going to trade Andrew Wiggins unless they get an offer that blows them away. With that being said, if they were to trade somebody, I think it's Jaime Jaquez. I don't think they're going to extend him. I think he's an odd fit. And outside of that, I would say the other person, maybe it's another like Norman Powell trade. So Milwaukee, this one's actually tough because I don't know who it is. I think they like their guards and Ryan Rollins and Scoot and Kevin Porter Jr. I know people are saying Andre Jackson, but I think he can play any position for them except obviously center. And I would think they would love to maybe move Kyle Kuzma, addition by subtraction, potentially. But outside of that, maybe it's Tyler Smith. This one's kind of hard because like they don't really have anything to trade. Chris Livingston, I just think they're just kind of want to hoard the guys they have because there isn't much upgrades outside of there. Minnesota, Mike Conley, if they moved him, I don't think they would do that. He's a veteran in the locker room, someone that they seem to really love. They do love. And there isn't a really clear succession plan. Like Bones Highland could potentially be better than Rob Dillingham this season and have more of a role, for all we know. And Jingling Joe Jingles, somehow is taking up a roster spot here. I could, if in a world where Leonard Miller and Terrence Shannon Jr. and Jalen Clark all become like 15 minutes minimum rotation players, and Dante DiVincenzo is inconsistent, that could be the guy. I think down the road, Rudy Gobert, if Johan Berenger is the guy. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that one. Minnesota's another like tough cookie where they're going to go like, who's going to take Randall? Who are they going to upgrade from Randall? The Pelicans, going back to the thing where like Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, unless they get a God offer, same thing with Zion, those would be moves they would do in the offseason, and unless they get a God offer. Outside of that, I mean, Matakovic is someone I think people would be interested in. Same thing with Kevon Looney if they need a big. Jordan Hawkins, if they want to move on from him, or Jose Alvarado and have somebody else play. I wouldn't be surprised if they decide that like they want to dump DeJounte Murray to a rebuilding team that'll buy him out. I think this is another tough one where it could go. Joe Dumars and Troy Weaver are strange men. Now we go over to Leon Rose and Gerson Rosas. Here, it's Mitchell Robinson. I don't think they're going to move Deuce McBride because supposedly Hakeem Diade or Tyler Kolek could get traded because they want to keep seemingly Garrison Matthews, Matt Ryan, and or Shamet or Brogdon. They're valuing shooting, so they're figuring that out. And once we're in the regular season, they don't want to move Deuce McBride. I think it's Mitchell Robinson if they feel like they can get a cheaper another center to join the rotation. If somebody gets in the buyout market that they pick up and somebody trades for Mitchell Robinson, they get maybe a player back that they deem, let's say like a John Conchar, and they find out Wiseman or Tony Bradley got cut, and they're like, oh, we'll take Bradley, and we get ourselves John Conchar. I don't know if that's like an actual deal. Maybe they get some pick compensation. You get what I'm saying, though. And why would the Grizzlies do that? I'm just pulling magic out of my ass. Now, we go over to the Thunder. I think this one's obvious. Ousmane Dieng. Ousmane Dieng's going to be gone. Maybe a Kenrick Williams, just because Aaron Wiggins, and I think with Sorber in the future, that's going to be somebody to understand that just they're going to have to replace guys. They can't pay everybody. They can't keep everyone. Orlando, I would say it's Jett Howard and Jonathan Isaac are the obvious ones. I think they value everyone who's shooting. I mean, Jett, it's just he can't see the floor. He's not seeing the floor. I think they value Isaac, but $15 million a year, and if somebody wants to take him off their hands, I don't think they're gonna like, oh, twist my arm. But Jamal Mosley does really like him. I just think that he's so unexpendable purely because of the contract. The Sixers, I mean, we know they wanted to trade Drummond and Kelly Oubre. I think a lot of players on this roster is tradable, except for Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, and Quentin Grimes. I think Paul George is tradable. I don't know if Joel Embiid is, not just because, like, I don't know if they want to trade him, but I don't know if people are going to be making calls like that or offering stuff that's worthwhile listening to. Now, let's go to the Phoenix Suns. We know the Phoenix Suns are probably trying to retrade Jalen Green, but it's more than likely Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen, and Nick Richards are the three guys that are expendable. They're just getting older, and also they're buried behind players that they want to play and develop. So their type of players, Grayson Allen being a 3-and-D guy, Royce O'Neal, similar thing, undersized combo forward, and Nick Richards being a shot-blocking big who Kamal Malawach and Mark Williams are going to be taking minutes from, are just going to be waiting there in arms, just like, okay, like, when is it going to be our turn? So then we go over to the Portland Trailblazers. Portland, I think, dude, Robert Williams, Matisse Thybulle, Brian Rupert, Dupreath are all tradable. I think down the road, Drew Holiday will be too, because I think they want to focus around Tomani Kamara, Shane Sharp, Scoot Henderson, whatever, Denny Avdia, Hanson Yang. Obviously, Jeremy Grant's someone they want to trade. I don't know if he's going to be able to be traded because of that contract. Sacramento, it's Malik Monk, Dario Saric. I think they're going to want to keep Devin Carter at this point. What are they going to do without him? He's their first-round pick. Yeah, it was a different regime. I think he's the third guy. I think the two guys are Dario Saric and then Malik Monk just because of his contract. They value Malik, but I think contract-wise, they would like to potentially move off of that. Now, San Antonio, this one's a little difficult, but I think it's obvious. It's Keldon Johnson. Unless they decide we don't want to be paying $27 million a year for Devin Vassell, we feel like Keldon can, he's been here for a while. He's been a mainstay, and he'll stick. Those are the two paid guys. And then I think out of the young guys, I think Jeremy Sohan, yes, he's one of the best perimeter lockdown guys, and he seems to be beloved by this group, but I don't know if they're going to want to meet the number that he wants for an extension. So that could lead to them deciding, hey, let's explore a trade. Toronto, I personally think one of the Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, they just brought in Brandon Ingram, and they're not going to trade Scotty Barnes, and they just extended Jakob Poeltl. So I think one of Quickley, RJ Barrett, and I think one of those two is going to have to get traded. It's probably going to be RJ Barrett. Maybe they keep them all. And then maybe an Ochai Agbaji because he's contract eligible, and they have other guys like Jacoby Walter, Jamison Battle, and Jonathan Mogbo and Ulrich Chimanchi who are going to push for minutes. So that's my thought. Then you have the Utah Jazz. Walker Kessler isn't going to sign an extension, so maybe they trade in someone who wants to trade for him. Svi Mykhailiuk, Kyle Anderson, Kevin Love, maybe even Taylor Hendricks, just because they might feel like he's not on the timeline anymore. Could all be guys that are eligible or open for trade. And then with the Wizards, look, they're going to probably end up buying out their older dudes at some point in the season. And the older dudes being, I think Anthony Gill seems to be one of their locker room guys, but CJ McCollum and Chris Middleton, I don't think anyone's going to actually take a trade for them. A guy that could get traded, Corey Kispert or Justin Champagnie. So Pennington's on a really affordable deal. And Corey Kispert, he's just starting to not be on the same timeline as this team. So I think a lot of people wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting moved. All right, that's it. That's basically my thoughts. People who could be potential dark horse trade, not dark horse, just trade candidate for every single team in the NBA. Let me know your thoughts. Bye.